Hello, welcome back. So now that you've answered and really explored both author qualification and bias, let's kind of put those two pieces together and just talk about credibility overall. And again, when we're talking about credibility, we're talking about trustworthiness, we're talking about whether or not that source is reliable, it's dependable, it's something that you would feel comfortable making decisions based off of. So in this context, obviously, we were talking again about gun violence in K through 12 schools. So part of that also has to do with relevancy. So when we're talking about relevancy, it's whether or not the specific part of that topic is being covered by a particular source. So let's go ahead and run through all the sources again and just kind of summarize some of the things that we've already discussed. So the first source is Stanford. So again, Stanford is considered a highly respected research institution that is, they're there to educate, they're not there necessarily to turn a profit. However, they do receive quite a bit of money every year, and some of that is from private donations. And because it's a private institution, we don't get the chance to know what money is being funneled to them. And so that may or may not have a question mark when it comes to if they are biased in one way or the other on a particular topic because of their funding sources. Okay, so then we talk about the principal. So this principal has many years, a decade of experience being a principal. However, we don't know his educational background. We don't know if the school is private or public, which again has a question mark attached to it because of the fact that there's not as much oversight when it comes to private institutions as opposed to public. And there's not that requirement of having to have a particular degree in order to get hired at a private institution versus public. The other thing is we actually don't know if he's ever been involved, like if his school has actually experienced a mass shooting. That might change the way that he feels about that particular topic. And so because we don't really know his background or the background of the schools that he's actually been present in, because if it's something where he is talking from a place of someone who has actually experienced it, that may be considered more of a qualification than someone who's talking about it in a more hypothetical sense. The other thing is he does have a book, but we don't know if that's self-published. We don't know if it actually is talking about gun violence and safety procedures that should be put in place to prevent mass shootings or mass attacks. The other thing is he has a for-profit business, so part of his income is based on going around and certifying other educational, some of his colleagues, so whether they be administrators or they be teachers in other institutions. So that is a question mark, just kind of like what we talked with Stanford. Where is he, depending on how much he's actually charging too, because if it is something where he's charging just a few dollars for people to come through and get certified, that's one thing. If he's charging hundreds of dollars for people to come through, there's the question of the quality, is it actually worth that amount, and why is he doing it? Is it really truly to educate other educators and to keep students safe, or is it just to make money? So then the third one, again, last but not least, we have our journalist. So she is someone who clearly has experience in that particular area because she is writing about Rochester. And so she understands Rochester, she's lived there. We don't know how many years, but she's lived there long enough to not only get a degree at the local university, but to also be working at the local paper. And so because she's gotten degrees in both I believe it was not only journalism, but then also legal studies. She may have some expertise when it comes to kind of the legal aspect of either gun reform or gun rights. However, she is also a journalist, so it's kind of her place, not necessarily to be the expert in that particular topic, but to go out and find quality experts to depend upon when she is actually crafting whatever piece of information she's putting out into the world. And one of the question marks that we highlighted was the fact that she is relying on her uncle. So one of her uncles, well, we don't know if she has more than one, but her uncle is actually a city councilman, and he is up for re-election. And so the question is she going to be basically repeating the arguments of her uncle in the paper in a more biased direction to help him get reelected, or is she going to be able to talk about it from a completely unbiased and just fact-based? And we don't know that. However, journalism does have quite a few ethical kind of accountability measures in play for a lot of the newspapers that are out there. There's a lot of other sources that are being put out on the web that maybe don't necessarily have those, but a lot of those newspapers, you are taught when you go to journalism school about the need to remain unbiased and about taking accountability when you do get things wrong. So all of these sources have both positive and possibly question marks about their reliability and their credibility. So putting all of that into play, the next step is we're going to be asking you to go ahead and choose which of these sources, if any, you would use if you were going to actually write this paper on the causes of gun violence in K-12 schools. Now keep in mind, we're not necessarily asking you to talk about how each of those sources is relevant to that topic. We're just asking you to talk about their credibility. So based on their credentials and also based on possible or no bias, whichever way you lean when it comes to that particular source. And that goes up with particular details from the sources themselves. Okay, I hope that this is very helpful for you, and if you have any questions at all, you know where to find me. Again, my name is Calantha, I'm from Lynchwood Library, and we are always here to help you.